The world didn't end with a bang. There was no alien invasion, no flashy apocalypse, no Hollywood crescendo. It ended slowly, like a light fading. Supply chains broke, governments fractured. The digital world, billions of hours of knowledge and culture, blinked out as servers went cold. Cities emptied. Silence returned to a planet that once never slept. Now, only one city remains. You're in it. Somehow it survived. Perhaps its location was remote enough to avoid the chaos. Perhaps its people were prepared. Or maybe it was just lucky. But the world outside is gone. And now, inside this one flickering light of civilization, people must ask, how do we begin again? The first days are chaos, ruled by instinct. There's no system, no law, just the basic will to survive. People scavenge for bottled water, for canned goods, for batteries. The shelves are empty within hours. Electricity, if it exists at all, is fleeting. Without fossil fuels being refined, without grids being maintained, the lights die, one by one. So begins the great unlearning. Most of us know how to use a smartphone, but not how to purify water. We know how to order food, not how to grow it. Civilization has always rested on the assumption that someone, somewhere, knows what to do. But now, that chain is broken. If we're going to survive beyond the next few weeks, we need to remember what it took to build the world in the first place. Clean water becomes sacred. A river, a spring, even a well, if you're lucky enough to find one, becomes the center of life. People relearn how to boil, how to filter with sand and charcoal. Illnesses that were once minor annoyances now kill without mercy. Medical knowledge, even at a basic level, becomes power. A nurse with a first aid manual is worth more than 100 soldiers. Food is no longer a supermarket trip. It's soil, seeds, patience, and risk. Crops must be grown without pesticides, without tractors, without processed fertilizers. The old ways, permaculture, composting, intercropping, make a comeback not out of fashion, but necessity. Chickens and goats, if they're still around, become assets. Bread is no longer a staple. It's a luxury that requires time, fire, and grain you can't waste. Eventually, the panic stabilizes. People begin forming groups, pooling resources, exchanging skills. A mechanic teams up with a farmer. A teacher finds a way to educate children by candlelight. But then comes the deeper, more dangerous question. Who makes the rules? There's no constitution anymore. No police, no courts. Power emerges from charisma or violence or the ability to control food. Some cities might slide into tyranny, others might cling to democracy. A few might experiment with consensus or even revive forgotten models like councils or tribal leadership. And here, the past becomes our map. History teaches us that power, once seized, is rarely given back willingly. If this last city is to survive beyond a generation, it needs justice, fairness, a way to resolve conflict without blood. Without it, survival becomes domination, but it's not enough to survive. Eventually, someone asks, what about the knowledge we lost? Our modern world was built on invisible scaffolding. Electricity, data, chemistry, logistics, communication. All of it is gone. Sure, some books remain. Maybe a library survived. But the vast majority of human knowledge was stored in digital format. Encrypted, compressed, scattered across dead hard drives and offline servers. Without power, it's useless. So the survivors begin to archive. A few brave souls dig through ruins for books, manuals, textbooks. Anything printed becomes precious. Children memorize multiplication tables by candlelight. Elders become walking encyclopedias. People begin etching key knowledge onto stone, metal, even wood, anything more durable than paper. This becomes the new Library of Alexandria. And like the first, it teeters on the edge of loss. Because if we forget how to make soap, how to build a water pump, how to prevent disease, the city will fall. Rebuilding infrastructure is another colossal task. Roads crack, bridges collapse. Cement and steel are rare commodities now. Without factories, without oil, people turn to older methods: mud bricks, timber, stone. Communication is reduced to runners, to smoke signals, to handwritten letters sent by bicycle. A few clever engineers might revive wind turbines, cobble together microgrids with salvaged solar panels, but without replacement parts, even this is temporary. So, what do you teach your children? The first generation born after collapse won't remember smartphones or skyscrapers. To them, the stories of the old world will sound like myth. Some will argue we must preserve history, pass it down word for word. Others will say, forget it. The world that came before destroyed itself. Why should we replicate its mistakes? Education becomes a battlefield of ideology. Do we teach the old equations, the old moral codes? Or do we create new ones built for this raw and unfamiliar world? What's certain is that knowledge must not be hoarded. A society without literacy, without science, is one doomed to repeat every catastrophe. But eventually, curiosity creeps in. What lies beyond the city? Are we truly alone? Explorers are sent out. Some return. They find other pockets of humanity, small towns, other survivors, maybe even other cities. And so begins the next phase, connection. Barter turns into trade. Trade turns into currency. Not dollars, not crypto, but salt, or tools, or labor. People invent new economies, shaped by scarcity and trust. Markets emerge in the ruins of old shopping malls. A chicken might be worth a day's labor, a battery worth its weight in gold. But then, the same questions resurface. Who owns what? Who controls the flow of resources? How do you stop corruption when no courts exist? And amidst all this, amidst trade and power struggles and rebuilding, something beautiful happens. A child picks up a stick and begins to draw on a wall. Someone sings. Another carves a pattern into stone. Culture returns. Slowly, awkwardly, but inevitably. Because humans are not just problem solvers, we are storytellers. And when we lose everything, it's not just the tools we miss, it's the meaning. Why do we keep going? What are we building toward? In time, the city becomes more than just a last stronghold. It becomes a beginning. Houses become homes, camps become neighborhoods, festivals are born, flags are designed, a new calendar is written. Children born into this new world don't ask, what did we lose? But what can we become? And just maybe, this last city becomes the first one of something better. Not a return to the old world, but a reinvention. A civilization not built on excess and division, but on resilience, wisdom, and memory. Because if history teaches us anything, it's that humanity does not stay down for long. We rise, we build, we imagine a better future even after the end. And perhaps this time we'll build it to last. What would you preserve if you were in the last city on Earth? What knowledge? What tool? What memory? Let us know in the comments.